at the time that you were on my radar of just a business in Bend that was doing something was a pretty small facility. I think you're off of Second, where you still are today, but it was definitely smaller than the location that you have today. But there had to have been a time even before that.
Oh, yeah, and Michelle's Kitchen is
Yeah.
where it started.
Yeah, tell me about that.
That it started in her kitchen?
Yeah, pretty much. So how did you guys decide that we're going to start making kombucha and we're going to start selling it?
Yeah. So it was 2008, and Bend was a bit of a mess. It was the time when the recession had happened, and both of us had just moved to Bend. I had moved from Philadelphia. She had moved from the Midwest. We didn't know anybody in town. We met in a tennis court. We became fast friends. And my job ended when the stock market crashed. I had a business for 15 years, and I didn't love it, so I didn't want to rebuild it. So I decided I was going to do something new. And then I met Michelle, and we'd sit at the kitchen table, and we'd laugh, and neither of us had jobs. We didn't actually know anybody in town, but we were stoked all the time.
Sure.
And we thought it was the kombucha that was making us feel so good. So we decided to get in the Prius and start the 2008 version of the Milkman, and we delivered gallon glass jars of kombucha to people for $20. So basically leave it on their doorstep. We'd collect $20. We'd put a fresh jar of kombucha, and we didn't know anybody in town either. So we basically sent an email out to like 15 people, some teachers and some neighbors, and said, hey, if you want to feel better for $20, we've got the answer. And within a couple weeks, we were on a wait list, and that lasted for the next 4 years.
So how did you go about, were you getting it, making sure everything was FDA approved when you were handing out and stuff like that? Like, you know, all the rigmarole and the kitchen licenses and all that stuff?
Well, yes and no. So when we first started delivering it, no.
Okay.
And then we realized that we needed to make this happen. So we called the Department of Agriculture, who monitors beverages. We said, hey, we have this beverage. Will you come over and make Michelle's Kitchen a kitchen that we can actually produce product out of? Because we wanted to sell to Newport Market. This is why it happened. And Newport Market said, you have to have this approved. We're like, oh, who should we call? And then we figured out what to do. So he came over and he said, okay, I don't know what to do with you guys. Most people are trying to get bacteria out of their facilities. You're trying to grow bacteria.
Yeah.
And so it was hilarious. And we kind of held hands with the Department of Agriculture all these years because we were one of the first, certainly the first in Central Oregon, and them having to understand how to make sure that it's safe when you're trying to grow it versus taking it out. So yeah, we were validated early on, but not until a retailer said you have to get validated. And we're like, what?
Didn't you find that a bit like powerful? What I see though is like all these people that are trying to get like validated before they even know if people want what they have.
Oh, people wanted it. We were out of stock.
Right, but you knew that because you were going out and you were doing it.
Yeah.
You're like, let's just go see. Hey, we'll send out the emails to 15 people, and then hopefully it grows from there. Hey, we have an answer for you, $20, and you had enough to make it a side hustle, or it sounds like your primary hustle at the time.
It was my very low-paid primary hustle. I think I was about 3 cents an hour for the first couple of years.
So then you jump through the hoops and you get approved. And your first retailer was Newport?
No, our first retailer was Sparrow Bakery. Okay. Followed by Pizza Mondo, Jackson's, Paria, Mother's. Newport was a little bit later because Newport you had to like have labeling and proper things, and the rest of them you didn't.
And when did you start having like the up and to the right moment?
Literally from when we started. I mean, it was like a rocket ship.
You couldn't keep up with the demand.
We couldn't keep up. And kombucha is, it's 1 makes 2, 2 makes 4, 4 makes 8 as far as the mother splits. It's like a sourdough starter, and you can keep splitting it, but it takes a lot of time. But by the time we moved to our first facility, which was 6 months after we started, we had 256 gallon glass jars going in one of Michelle's closets, and that's when we moved. So we were delivering to 256 people, and we had a closet where you just had like the Home Depot racking, and it was this tiny little closet, but
it was just going to the ceiling.
It was just going to the ceiling. Yeah, we had notes on all of them about when it was due and all that good stuff.
Would you do that process again, how you guys went through it, or if you were to look back at when you first got started, like, oh, we probably should have gotten approved here, we should have gone to this retailer?
Okay, I think part of the problem of starting a business is you try and get all your ducks in a row before you start it, and there's so many hurdles to getting your ducks in a row. Sometimes it kind of inhibits us from actually getting started.
Yeah.
So I think there's something really very genuine and sweet about doing it, and while you're doing it, figuring it out, as long as you're not hurting anybody, right?
Sure.
But I think that way you're getting immediate feedback. You're also seeing what's working and what's not working real time as you're figuring it out.
You're also getting motivated, right? Like people want what we're trying to do, as opposed to I'm trying to get everything together. I'm not really that sure. And 3 months go by, 6 months go by, a year goes by. I put so much time and energy and money. God, I hope this works. And you guys know, like, hey, we had we had people from day one wanting to do the Kombucha Mama milkmaid service, and then milkman, milk person. What's politically correct? I don't know either. And then you have the orders in Sparrow and Jackson, and so I'm guessing those were selling pretty quickly, and you're just trying to restock those into glass bottles.
So we didn't have glass bottles at the time. Everything was on draft.
Okay.
So we did everything. So we didn't have to package or do anything like that. Everything was on. We just sold kegs. Actually, at the time, we sold gallon glass jars to everybody. We didn't sell kegs at the time.
Okay.
So we went from gallon glass jars to kegs to bottles, and mostly because of convenience and ease.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's this idea of like everybody has a great idea. There's a million great ideas, and then you have to be able to execute. So you have to be able to get stuff done, but also somebody has to buy your product. Like so, there is a very those three things absolutely have to happen in order to find any kind of success. And I think if you stay in the planning stages for too long, sometimes you plan yourself out of a business.
I would absolutely agree.
Yeah.
So you guys were Kombucha Mama, and then something also on this really quick on what you're just saying, I was just thinking about with your name is the planning stage, right? There's so many entrepreneurs that have talked to me about, I'm not sure what to name it, and they spend all this time on a name, and they all get all caught up. And so where I'm going with this is that you guys had Kombucha Mama. I loved that name. I thought that name was great. And then through the grapevine of Ben, they're doing a rebrand. And then you guys came out with Humm, and I honestly thought, well, that's crap compared to Kombucha Mama. I was very wrong.
Right? A lot of people.
Right. And so, and then you guys just really took off. But my question is, what was it like for you going through that rebrand? How was it difficult? Was it easy? Did you have second thoughts on it? Like, just walk us through that rebrand process.
Okay, so we went to a advertising place called TBD in town, and we said, hey, we're in like beer bottles, we're in 24 packs, they leak, we have all sorts of issues, can you help? And they said, sure. And they said, would you consider changing your name? We said, that's the dumbest idea we ever heard. We're Kombucha Mama. And 6 months later, we changed our name. And I think that part of that has to do with these guys are experts in what they do. And if you're going to partner with experts and people that are really good at what they do, you have to listen to what they say. And it was 6 months. It was pretty brutal. And it's like your baby. You're a founder, right? And there was every reason to say why this wasn't a good idea, and there was a lot more reasons to say why this was a good idea. And most of it had to do with the reason I was talking about the why, and the book, the Simon Sinek book, is it's all about your why. Like if you're really, really clear about why you do what you do or why you're doing, then every time you stumble, you can go back and have clarity from the actual why versus, because you're going to stumble along the way. You're going to second guess yourself. You're going to hit roadblocks. It's just the way it goes. And if you are really clear about why you're doing what you're doing, you can always go back to that and go, okay, it's okay that I'm having a roadblock. It's okay that I'm stumbling right now. So we got really clear on the why we would switch the name. And once we were clear on that, there was no stopping us. And as a matter of fact, one of our distributors, right before we switched, who is Bigfoot in town, the Pepsi distributor, we were upwards of $1 million brand at that point, and they said, this is a really bad idea. You have a cult-like following. People love your brand. Don't do it. And we were like, oh my gosh, you have no idea what's about to happen. Like this is going to explode. So and the why is, so Kombucha Mama is a story about two women. It's a story about two moms in a kitchen.
Right.
Humm is about a movement. It's about a group of people. It's about a energy. It's kind of how you feel. You hum when you're happy. You would hear the brewery humming. And then the goal was accessibility, so that we had this product that was very accessible. Most of the other kombuchas were a little bit maybe harder to drink, and they all got sold at health food stores. But our product was sold everywhere else. And Kombucha Mama was weird. We had a lotus flower on there. It seemed very inclusive. We were looking. Oh, sorry. It seemed very exclusive.
I know what you're saying. Yeah. You were in this society.
Versus Humm is like Humm anybody can access.
Yeah,
anybody.
The bottle is just pictures of everything going on.
And the name, I mean, it's an American name.
Sure.
You hum when you're happy. Humming is just a part of,
Were you guys one of the? I don't know. I I think you were, but were you one of the first, at least in Central Oregon, to be like in gas stations as a
We were
kombucha?
the only ones. Yeah, we were the first in the country to be in gas stations, as far as I know, if not the first, one of the first. And nobody was. All the other kombuchas were at health food stores. They were all fighting over the shelf space. But we asked the question of like, what if you didn't shop at a health food store? Would you be interested in something that tasted really good, that was really good for you?
Okay, so let's dive into that really quick. That decision-making process. There's a lot of risk right there, right? Let's put something towards something that hasn't been done, but you guys went to do it. Let's be in gas stations and in front of Safeway and things of that nature. What made you say, okay, yeah, let's try it? Because that's like you have to commit reps, resources, and times to it. You have to commit marketing time to it. You have to commit buying shelf space that hopefully it works if you do land the accounts, and you have to hope that people end up buying it. So what made you guys be like, yeah, no, this is totally going to work. We're going to do it. Because nobody's done it before. This is scary.
Well, I think there's a level of risk aversion that people have. I don't know that I have a barometer on risk. Like I don't
think
see
I
an
have one either,
opportunity.
but I'm just
This is an entrepreneur.
I saw it. I'm like, let's do it. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Well, and I think that I think passion, you have to be incredibly passionate about what you're doing, because you have to be able to talk people into whatever it is you're excited about. And then you have to really believe it. And that goes back to the why. Every time you go back to the why, and no matter what you hit along the way, it's like we tested it and people were drinking it, like Food for Less, ethnic grocery store, 50, 60, 70 kegs a week. We would poll people. We had to bring people in that spoke Spanish and say, can you translate for me? Why are you buying this product? Spanish people would say, I don't know. I feel so good. I can't afford it, but I keep feeling really good and I keep buying it. And so we knew we were onto something, and then it was a matter of talking the retailers into doing something different and unique. And you'd find those retailers that are really progressive and pioneering and want to be the first, and you capitalize on that, and you make it sound like it's so compelling and they can't lose, and they're going to be the first and they're going to get all the recognition, and you kind of play to that, and then you deliver, you execute at an exponential level. You do everything you're going to say you do on top of. You make it super easy to work with you, even if you don't know what you're doing. You be upfront, you're super transparent and authentic, and be like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, I need some help. If you help me, let's do this, versus, just shooting in the dark.